Welcome to Cyberspace PC with your host Scott, and today we're looking at a GeForce GTX 1650. This is a Gigabyte model, dual fan. It's a rather diminutive card. You really can't tell from this angle, but it's very small. Probably about a half-size video card compared to most of the cards that I've seen. Now, this is a kind of a special card in the fact that it doesn't require any external power. It gets all the power it needs from the PCIe 16 interface in the card. It's a very clean looking unit, minimal use, I would say. Always good to see. I got it for around $120 used. We'll be looking at 6 games today. Now the test rig, we're going to be doing 1080p for all the games with the Ryzen 5 3600 at 4.2 gigahertz, 16 gigabytes of DDR4 3200 megahertz memory with the 1650. First game off, we're going to be doing Fortnite at epic settings, and we're getting about high 50s up to 60 frames per second here. Of course, our 1% lows aren't the best. Looks like it's about 14. Anytime you're dropping in, there's a little bit of stutter. It seems like every system has this problem. So the 0.1% lows, kind of ignore those. The game's running really smooth here. No concerns at all in epic settings. Of course, if you wanted to get higher rates, probably drop it down to medium. You'll probably be hitting over 100 frames per second, I'd imagine, with that, if you're more of a competitive Fortnite player. But if you want to run on Epic, it can do it, no problem at all. Very smooth. And moving on to the next title, we've got Metro Exodus here. Now this one kind of surprised me because, this is a fairly demanding title. Not the newest title, but we're able to run on high settings and get nearly 60 frames per second with decent 1% lows at 44, 0.1% at 22, but very smooth, no stuttering and so forth. Now I would say that running a Ryzen 5 3600 might be probably maybe a little bit more processor than most people would use with a 1650, but it's not terribly over spec for the for a build, seeing that the 1650 runs about $150 new, and you can get a Ryzen 5 3600 for around $170, maybe $180 new, used around $160. But the game is beautiful. The 1650 is handling it really nicely. Temps are cool, around 60 degrees or so. Just got snapped by one of those weird things there in the game. Moving on to the Division 2. Same thing here. High settings. Getting a nice smooth upper 50. It looks like a 56 average on the frame rate. 0.1% lows, 46. 0.1% low, around 27, so not too bad. Ideally, you'd like it to be a little tighter. Looks like it jumped up a bit now that we've got a little bit more gameplay, but very smooth, no stuttering here. And I would say that having a 6-core 12-threaded CPU is going to help you out quite a bit in the Division. It could be a fairly CPU intensive game, especially in some of the battles that are highly populated with NPCs and so forth. But the card's about below 60 degrees, whisper silent, sipping on power, no more than 75 watts of power off the PCIe 16. Really nice. Looks like the frame rates drop down just a little bit as we get into some of the more intensive areas here. Shadow of the Tomb Raider Now we had to drop down to medium settings in this title. This is a pretty GPU, this is a pretty GPU intensive game. Getting in the mid 50s. I'm sure if you drop down to lower settings, you'd be above 60 frames here with the Ryzen 5 3600. The game still looks really good on medium. You do notice a difference dropping down from high to medium, but you're going to be getting more like console frame rates if you're going to play on high. Ultra probably would be pretty stuttery, but 1% lows, 1.1% lows, pretty close together here. So not a lot of no bad dips or anything. Nice and smooth gameplay. Very impressive. GPU still running nice and cool. And this card's pretty incredible, running around 1900 megahertz with no external power supply. Control. Now this title we did have to drop down to low settings. It's kind of a next generation title in a certain aspect that you have to have pretty strong hardware to run it on high, even at 1080p. But very smooth on low, and honestly, between low, medium, and high, you just don't really notice a lot of difference. At least I don't in the gameplay, and some of the close-ups, the hair and so forth, you might notice a bit of a difference, but it's a lot to do with the physics, after explosions and a lot of textures on the screen. But you're getting really good frame rates, up over 60 on low 1080p. If you're running a 1050 Ti, 1650 isn't much of an upgrade, but if you're down on a 1050 2GB or a GTX 750, maybe a RX 560, I think this would be a good upgrade for a low power GPU. 0.1%, 45, not too bad for this title. And our last game of the day, GTA 5, gotta have it in here. We'll just run through the benchmark, and this is, with Rockstar games, there's a lot of different, there's no preset, so I would call this medium to high settings. But, if you have a 1050 Ti 4GB, I wouldn't worry about upgrading to a 1650. Obviously, it's just not a good upgrade. Now, if you had a 1060 3GB, that 3GB of VRAM, but this card does have 4GB of VRAM, so it's definitely nice to have that extra gigabyte, so you don't run into too many problems at 1080p. Medium-ish settings is what this card seems to really be comfortable with if you're not looking for super high frame rates. But if you have a card like this, you're not going to be a high refresh player typically anyway. And so once we get to the driving scene, we can probably see more of a realistic frames per second that you'd be getting in the game. I tried it with all high settings, and it just was around 40 FPS, so dropped it down to the medium high settings here, and we're getting about up over 70 frames per second, which is more than playable. Looks really good. But I must say, all in all, I'm really impressed with the 1650. I know it gets a lot of negativity because it's not that fast, but for what you're getting, no external power supply, and bringing it into like a business machine, all of a sudden you go from having just a regular computer to a gaming PC. Or if you can't afford a really good power supply, this might be a good option for you. But all in all, I enjoyed the 1650. It would definitely be easy to put it into an older Dell, crank out a gaming PC for around $300 or so, since you don't have to buy a power supply. But what do you guys think? Do you think the GTX 1650 is any good? Let me know in the comments down below. Please leave a like if you like this sort of content, and please consider subscribing so you don't miss out on new episodes. Have a great day, and we'll catch you in the next video.